Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Happy Friday Eve. Happy Friday
Yes.
Eve, Senor Rene.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm
For
definitely
sure.
excited to be on the Medical Billers Network live.
Yes, we're happy to have you here. Hey, guys, welcome. When you guys get here, we want to hear from you. Let us know that you're here. So drop us a comment. And today we are wanting to know about how you feel about this upcoming holiday weekend.
hmm
Renee, how do you feel about this upcoming holiday weekend?
I need a good holiday weekend. I'm looking forward to it, and actually, my daughter doesn't have a soccer game this weekend, so we get to relax as a family. We're going to a picnic, actually, so we're definitely going to enjoy it for sure.
Nice. An actual holiday weekend vacation with when you're cooking out, eating
Mhm.
some food, all that. Hey, Sarah. Hey,
Yes.
Ashley. Welcome, welcome. So, you guys, I don't think I've never had Renee on here before. On this, we've not had you here before, Renee. You and I talk all the time on platforms like this, so I'm always like,
I know.
hmm.
I know.
Hi, Rachel Dawn. Welcome. Hey,
Yep.
Christine.
And it's been a while, but it's just to get back into it. It's fun. So thank you
Yes.
for, getting me on this.
Yes, yes. So those of you who don't know, Renee and I also have a podcast together. Healthcare, excuse me, my voice just cracked on me. Healthcare Disrupted. We are like about 4 months out from not posting anything. I think it's about
Yes.
4 months. So hey,
Yes.
Winona.
Long
Um,
overdue.
we are off that wagon. We're
You
being
you
dragged
know
behind. We fell way off,
you
didn't we?
you know what? I think, eventually we're just gonna start getting on there and just start talking. And then when we get our people, they'll come on. But we'll get
Yeah.
on there.
It's true. We're gonna get right back on, and it's easy. Like that's the gift is that we are blessed that we've got a lot of great content and people that want to jump on
Yeah.
that podcast with us. But we are busy, aren't we now?
Yeah. Yes.
We are busy. That
Life.
life exactly, kids and businesses and all the things that go along with that. So, but I'm so happy to have you here because one of the things that we don't really talk about in our other platforms is our revenue cycle businesses. So guys,
hmm
that I know that many of you ask these questions about starting medical billing companies. There's so many people in our Facebook group. And if you're not a part of the Facebook group, definitely join the Facebook group. It'll be in the comments underneath this video when it gets posted, or you can just search it for search on Facebook. It's Medical Billers Live, the Medical Billers Network, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
someone will pop it in the comments for us. Please do that in the backstage area because I don't remember the name of the group, you guys. That's
I think
but
you
it's
got it right.
something like that, right, Renee? Yeah, because I mean, what we're trying to do is the goal here with this entire platform. Those of you who are new here, is to bring our community together, support each other. We all need to start somewhere. Some of you guys are brand spanking new in the world of billing, and some of you have been around for a long time, and then just have never really gotten connected to a network of colleagues. And I mean, Renee and I both, like, this is like the gift
Oh
between
yes.
Renee and Tanya and I. Like, we just like having people to
Yes.
talk to and talk it out with and say, look, now I'm dealing
Yeah.
with this. I don't know what to do.
I mean, you definitely hit a good point, Jasmine, because um, I remember when I was first kind of starting this venture out, and I remember talking to you, and I mean, if people don't know your story is inspiring, right? And just kind of, for you, you always drop those nuggets of knowledge, and I would always soak it up. And I learned so much from you. And when you find that person who's already doing it and probably have come across those obstacles that you
Mm,
have been through, keep them, because there's just so much to continue to learn from. And
sure.
again, it's, building that community. I tell you, it's so important. And even then, sometimes Like if you get a client and, for whatever reason, you may not want to take on that client. Hey, I got a community of people I can shop you to,
Hey,
you know?
Rene. I have his number on speed dial, y'all, and we'll talk about why in a minute because there's some things that Rene does that I don't do. I don't do. I can't. We just do not do that. Yeah. So
Oh, man.
he has a hyper specialized focus for certain providers, and I love it because it's so needed. And so many, we'll talk more detail about that. I'm going to jump the gun, but those of you guys who are just joining, I want to hear about how you guys feel about this long weekend. Let us know that you're here. Drop a comment. And then if you have questions that are coming to mind, Rene is here because he also owns a billing and consulting company. So you have questions that come to mind, the how, the why. I have some questions that I'm already going to pick his brain about. But if there's something that you already know you want answered, pop it into the comments and let us know. If you are watching this on the replay, always do that hashtag replay so we know, and then pop the question down there. And Rene is also in our Facebook group, so he will be on the lookout, and we'll tag him if you guys ask a question that pertains to his journey and for advice. And so tell me a little. Okay, so let's have you introduce yourself, Rene, and then tell us kind of how your career came to birth your baby. We're gonna call it your baby because you guys, you don't know this already. Starting a business is like giving birth to a child. It is painful yet rewarding.
Yes,
Painful
yes,
yet
very,
rewarding.
very true. Very true. Well, everything started in the military for me. Right out of high school, I knew that I wanted to do something in business. I just wasn't sure exactly what it would look like.
Mm.
And when I decided to go to the Navy, and I decided to become a hospital corpsman, which is equivalent to a medical assistant. And then from there, I became a surgical tech. And one day in the OR, I remember I was new to the Naval Hospital of Jacksonville, Florida, and they put me in general surgery. I was doing a laparoscopic and inguinal hernia repair. It was just me and the surgeon. And he asked me a question. He said, okay, you're new here. What are your plans? Are you planning on going to college or what? I said, yeah, absolutely. I want to go to school. And he said, so what do you want to major in? I said, a nurse. So then he said, well, do you really like being a nurse? I said, no.
It just seems to be the right thing, right? It's like,
Right.
well, that's what I should do,
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly, especially when you have all the other surgical techs. I mean, that's what they're doing. So I figured, well, that's going to be the natural progression for me.
Mm-hmm.
So then he said, no, what do you really like? And I said, well, I've always liked business. I just didn't know what exactly I would do in business. I said, maybe someday start a company or what. So then but then I did tell him I do enjoy healthcare too. So he said, well, why don't you look into majoring healthcare administration? And that was the first time I ever heard healthcare administration. Because for me, whenever I hear medical, I think about nurse or doctor. That's it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, well, what's a healthcare administrator? He said, well, think of yourself as being like a CEO of a hospital, or maybe like a executive. You're over several departments, you're managing it, all this stuff. I was like, oh. And then I remember going home, I Googled healthcare administration and I read up about it. I said, that's it. This is what I want to do. I kid you not. I think maybe a week later, I enrolled into school, man, and I went on from there and got an opportunity to manage a clinic. And by the time I got done with my bachelor's, I decided I'm going to pursue my career on the outside. And I joined the reserves, got hired by HCA, managed practices, started moving up, and and then from then in 2019, working for HCA here in Dallas, and they were going through some downsizing, budget cuts, all this stuff, and my position was the position that got eliminated. I wasn't sad, I wasn't worried, but I knew. I said, you know what? I think I'm kind of tired of this corporate stuff. I said, I think I want to do what I've always wanted to do, and that's start my own company. But even then, I still wasn't too sure. And I remember I had a conversation with my wife. I said, listen, um, uh, I can go and look for another job, or I can look internally with an HCA. But I said, I think I want to try to do something on my own. And my wife, she looked at me, she said, you know what? You've helped start up a lot of practices. You know everything that it takes to start and run a practice. So if you want to do consulting, I believe in you. I know you can do it. She said, but the only exception is I'll give you 1 year. Okay. If nothing happens, you better go find yourself a job.
You gonna get that job? What you doing? Sitting around at home. What you gonna do with $10,000 a year? Yeah. Smart woman. Smart woman.
Exactly, right. But you know what? That was all I needed to hear. And that really gave me the confidence to go out and do it because, we talked about this, right? Whenever you start a company, you kind of have that imposter syndrome, and it's like, people are not going to take me serious. Here I am talking to these providers and I'm feeling like I'm just a phony, right? I'm a small company. Nobody's going to take me serious. And I struggled with that for like a little while, but I think through the conversations you and I have had, and even with Tanya too, it really helped me to kind of overcome that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how, healthcare experience came about, So,
Yeah, it's funny because like that imposter syndrome comes in different shapes and forms. And
oh yeah.
I mean, even if you are brand new as a biller and you try to, prove yourself on the job in a practice or in different, it's just, you're going to be faced with it. It doesn't matter what you're doing, starting a business, starting a new career, any of that. You're going to feel it creep in. You just got to tell that thing to sit down somewhere.
Yes.
You go down, sit down somewhere.
So I rebuke you.
Exactly, I rebuke you. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. No, it's true though. I mean, it's a little like it's just a cyclical thing too, because it's like you might start in a certain level, and then when you push yourself to the next thing, when you're out of your comfort zone, that's when you get challenged, and that little voice comes in and says, you think you know something, but you don't, all these little, when they do the head movements, that little voice at the it. Unless we have some good comments here. So Ashley, she needs a break from work. Front desk receptionist doesn't know how to put insurance the right way. Look now. We all face that, Ashley. I would love to tell you that there's a magic pill. If I can find the magic ingredients to prescribe some medication that will solve this problem for any sort of front end, I will sell it. You know what I would do? I wouldn't even sell it. I would give it away for free, because you know how much that would how many things that would solve in the revenue cycle period if people on the front end could get it right. We were having a joking conversation about AI and like what positions would be the best and easiest to, like, if you could automate and like put a robot at the front desk that could automatically check and be connected to everything like right away. Then, the insurance companies, the software, even the prescriptions, the referral company. I mean, all those things, if they could be somehow, replaced it with a little bit more, or given the tools. We're just going to say that. We're not going to replace them. We're going to give them the right tools to do their job. That's what we want. But yes, truly robotics in that area would be helpful, or some sort of supportive AI. So I feel your pain, Ashley. I feel your pain. So Rachel Dalton has a good question already. So as a consulting agency, how do you navigate, excuse me, sorry guys, emails from providers, billers, or friends that just want to ask a question? You want to charge for your expertise?
You know what? That is a great question. So I tell you this, right? When I first started, right, I actually had one client, and which was good. And but of course I wanted to get additional clients. And what I was doing, I was like, hey, yep, I'll speak with you, for free. And sometimes you think a 30-minute, maybe an hour conversation, and then it turns into a 2-3 hour, like, okay, wait a minute, right? And it's like, after you do that so many times, you're like, listen, man, okay, this is my time here, right?
Mhm.
And again, it's just, you know, believe in what you know. And when they're spending that time with you, they're getting this knowledge that's in here, right? And within that 2, 3 hours, there's nothing that's going to guarantee that they're going to come and use your service, right? Because now they may eventually come back because they're going to be like, okay, wait a minute, I thought I can do this, but hearing it is one thing, but doing it is a whole another thing as well too. But yeah, I mean, definitely charge your fee. You know, charge what you think you need to be paid.
Mhm.
And again, I struggled with that early on, but I realized, you know what, every client is not for me, and I'm okay with that. You know, I think, you know, early on I was like, okay, I got to make my prices affordable and all. Like, no, do not do that. You charge a price that will allow you to pay your bills
Mhm.
and take care of your family and enjoy life. And again, the right clients will come along. Because I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you, even now, I've turned away certain clients. Like if I speak with them and I kind of get a certain vibe, no, no, thank you. You know, I
Yeah.
pass. Like, or I'll say, you know, I might know somebody that might be able to, you know, provide service to, but it's not going to be me because it's just not worth it at the end of the day.
It's true. It's true. When you know, then people, you can feel it. I mean, that's the truth. You can feel it when someone
Hmm.
is emotionally draining. Um,
Yes.
and it's like, it's almost like a thing when you talk to certain providers or administrators, and everybody else is wrong always. Like, I had the biller and I had the billing and I had 5 billing companies and my practice has been open for 2 years. Like, you went through
Hmm.
how many billing companies and people in 2 years? Like, you feel
Hmm.
that like, problem kind of with retention, and perhaps with like communication and understanding
Yeah.
professional relationships, and how things need to have certain boundaries, and expectations need to be clear. You can sense that. So I think it's helpful to just draw the line right away, and don't feel like you have to kind of say yes to everybody. And for sure, just like Rene said, I'm going to say the charging for your expertise, for sure. I would say if you have like a minimum amount of time you would speak to somebody. The issue with this is
Hmm.
that sometimes people, how do I say this? Sometimes people, you say, okay, I'll chat with you for 10 minutes. And they're like, oh yeah, it's a real quick question, like I just
Hmm. Yep.
doesn't always like, and I just be super transparent. Look, I have commitments, and
Yep.
I've carved out 10 minutes for this conversation. The moment that our 10 minutes are up, we've got to
Yep.
end the conversation. So I want to just let you know that right away.
Yep.
And you just tell them, like, the timer is going to be on. I know it might
Hmm.
sound liberal, but I got to make time for the other commitments that I have. And so these obligations, they take the front seat to anything else. And so if you want to get on my calendar, I'll carve out time, but that is X amount of dollars for, a minimum
Yeah.
of an hour, or maximum of an hour, or whatever it is that you want to set. But be very, very clear, because they need to
Right.
know what to expect from you. And
Hmm.
they also, you want to be clear about like what it is that you're going to deliver at the end of the day. If okay, I can give this much energy, and I have this much bandwidth for conversations, set your limits. To be like, look, I only have 2 hours a week. So that means
Yeah.
you get like 3 phone calls. You're the third person. Sorry, you're gonna have to wait till next week. Like, it's true. Like, you have to be real. Otherwise, you'll burn yourself out. And especially if you're
Yeah.
working another job, I'm imagining you're working, with someone else,
Yeah.
or for yourself. You're going to need
Yep.
to make sure that you
Yep.
are clear about that. And as Rene said, some people, they're really just probing and, trying to kind of pick your brain. And I'm all about, as we are on here, you guys probably
Hmm.
get the fact that I'm all about giving, and I
Yeah.
love sharing knowledge. But you do have to recognize where what the limit is, right? Like, if you
Correct.
want to be able to support people, when does it turn to now you're a mentor and a coach, basically? When does it turn to that, and
Hmm.
when you should be, paid for that kind of service, if you're going to become
Correct.
kind of that person, unless it's, a friend, a family friend, or a close friend, or something like that, that you
Yeah.
kind of feel that sort of friendship or friendly obligation to. Otherwise, everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
it's fair. It's fair for you to
Yep.
charge. So,
Absolutely.
Ashley, I did not know. You're a vet? I had no idea. I did not know you were in the Army Reserves. How about that? So I love it.
Fellow vet. Love it.
Yes. Oh, and she worked for HCA too.
Oh, really? Oh
They
man,
must
we
be.
gotta talk.
I
Oh, we
know.
gotta talk.
I love it. Let me see. Offering a discount is offering a discount disrespectful to them. You're gonna have to expand on what you mean by
So
discount.
actually, I think so. I'm assuming, and I might be wrong. Maybe if people is asking her for discounts, because let me tell you, I've I I have had a client that said, "Hey, I told her what my fee was for consulting. She was like, "Oh my goodness, that's so much money!" Like, yeah, yep, yep. And so she was like, "Please," she was like, "just give me this discount for like 2-3 months, and then I can start paying you." So, and I said, "Okay," and this was early on, right? I said, "Okay, fine." And after 3 months, she needed other services from me. And then she wanted a discount. I said, "You know what? We can't do this." I said, because it's like, how you going to ask me for a discount, right? I said, so when your patients come see you and they ask you for discounts, are you going to give them a discount?
Every
I
time.
just heard, I heard crickets. I'm like, okay, so it's like, it's either you're gonna be for me or you're not, and if you're not, that's okay. And honestly, another advice for anybody starting a consulting company, billing company, whatever it is, I know early on you want to build up clients fast, but I'm gonna tell you, in hindsight, take your time, right? Take your time. And I know it's easier said than done, but when you really take your time, and really make sure that the clients is for you, I think you'll be better off that way. And stand firm on your price. I'm telling you, stand firm. And I know that might be hard because you might feel like, man, I'm losing potential clients. I could have been making this potential money. But let me tell you, some money is not worth it. I'm telling you, the headache, oh my gosh, it's
Oh
not
yeah.
worth it. So yeah.
Love that advice. That's such great advice. I absolutely 100% agree with you there. Like there's so many people who jump to discounting, and there's a couple of things that go on there. The first part of that is that as you just communicated, is sometimes that's the belief is undervaluing your services, and that becomes kind of a consistent, almost a malignant problem where they just
Yeah.
are seeing you as not as valuable to them as the next, individual person, company, what have you. And so that's the question. That's the first question, right? The second thing is that now all of a sudden you have someone that you've given a discount to, and you maybe have other folks that you haven't. So then it starts to put these kind of uncomfortable feelings around that relationship where you almost, without realizing it, might not give them the best level of service because now they're the guys that aren't really paying you a lot, right? It's just like, well, I gave them a discount, so they don't get that as much of me as the next guy, and that's not fair to the client and not fair even to you, right? Because now you've undervalued yourself, and now you're mad at the client for it. Like you undervalued yourself, like you gave them. I mean, and it's one thing to give grace, like. I've done things over the years where, okay, like somebody's team, we'll say big bomb went off kind of thing, like somebody who'd been there for all these years just left. They don't know where things are. They need to figure out, all this stuff that kind of happens very, very quickly. And they just need a moment, like a blip in time. Help me figure this out. I'll pay the registration. I just don't know, something like that. That's where it's like, okay, well, let me help you let's you pay us this quick thing. Let's do a little deep dive into your books, and then we'll come out on the other side. But maybe it's a totally different relationship. That's just a kind of a one-time help me, a lifeline, right? Versus it feeling like you have to basically add them on as a full client without them being able to afford you, I think it's a better investment for them to be offered or extended an opportunity to learn what you can do for them, and potentially you might be able to put things right for them in a very short period of time where they can now afford you, right? so afford you at your proper rate. So
Yeah.
that's what I like to hear. So this is a good one for you. 25 years revenue cycle experience. What do you suggest for some steps transitioning from corporate America to owning my own consulting? How do I reach out to providers about my business?
So let me tell you, I love this question. This question is probably like I think about when I left HCA, and I remember probably the last couple of weeks I was there, and a lot of the physicians that I built relationships with, they were like, "Man, so what are your plans? Did you get another job or what?" And during that time, I had decided I'm gonna go ahead and just start my own consulting business. I was like, "Really?" It was like, "Oh man, it's great." And the nice thing is that they were like, "Hey, listen, here's my buddy's contact, my buddy who's a orthopedic or who's a primary care doctor, or I got a buddy over here who's thinking about, starting a practice, or, they might need, billing or credentialing, whatever it is." So having those relationships is, you will find that when you want to step out and do your own thing, how much that relationship will really help you out in getting your first couple of clients.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what happened to me? And even with one of them, they was like, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'm gonna start my own thing. Can you help me?" So it's so again, there is a lot of value in just building that relationship, but just be sure that's what you want to do, right? Um, and and I think once you do start your consulting business, you want to get on platforms, whether it's doing a YouTube, or I know Clubhouse is another great platform, because you need to start positioning yourself as that expert, so that way people can really start to see your level of detail of just knowledge, and then just explaining things about whatever you're doing. Again, whether it's operations, billing, credentialing, whatever it might be, but definitely position yourself to be that expert. And again, you might get that. What is it called again? The syndrome thing.
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, yes, yes. You might get that imposter syndrome, but trust me, especially when you've done this for 25 plus years, trust me, you know what you're doing. You just have to feel confident enough to explain to people what you do and how you do it. Once you are able to do that, you're golden. But yeah, so that would be my thing, is when you're transitioning from corporate to your own thing, those relationships, don't lose them. Maintain contact with that, and ask those people that you have a relationship with, who, yeah, I mean, where you could potentially find, business, or if anything, they'll just refer you to somebody that they know, because physicians always have physician friends, always.
Oh yeah, that's really great advice, Renee. It's interesting that you mention about them connecting with folks at kind of their current or even previous engagements, and this is kind of goes back to really, really important, very sound advice. Healthcare is a big industry, but it can feel like a small town sometimes,
Oh yes.
especially depending on your community. So
Yeah.
it's really, especially on our side of the business, the administrative side of the business. Someone knows someone from somewhere that knows someone that knows you. So I say that to say, do not burn bridges. Very, very, very important, because just like any great relationship or any great opportunity for you, it's all about those relationships, right? You're going to need to stay really sound in what you do. It doesn't mean you've got to, stay in a job you don't like because but just know how to leave, right? If you're the person who quits and walks out the door the next day or that same day, you might have a struggle, right? You might have, a challenge continuing to maintain those great relationships that could benefit you when you're looking to start a company like this. So really, really important for you to recognize the importance of relationships and maintaining quality, sound relationships, and you showing up 100%, even if you don't love the position. Show up. show up and do a
Yeah.
great job, because you really have no idea who the next person is, who the next person is going to produce that great client for you. So let's see. We had an open house and invited an insurance provider relations liaison as guests. Cool. As a business, Rachel Don, let me know. Are you already a business? For sure, provider relation liaisons. Okay. So obviously, you're probably in an area where provider reps are still like popular, we'll say. In some big cities, like we don't even get provider reps anymore. So yay for you. We used to get them up until like, I don't know, maybe 10, I say 10 years. It has to be like 10 years.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
It's a while.
But, I would totally say that you absolutely will need to connect with as many people as you can that have, including like reps, let's say other reps that you could talk to, or even the pharmaceutical reps, like ones that are in and out of practices all the time and have deeper relationships, because a lot of pharmaceutical reps have been working with the same providers for years and years. And so it is very, very helpful to just establish relationships, and you'll know the people that, resonate well for you, that you want to continue to kind of think about as partners. And if it's a finder's fee or a thank you or something like that, that you give them, that's, always nice. But, or whatever, you buy them sandwiches like the like the pharmaceutical reps do.
I'm gonna throw you a little bone here,
Exactly.
here too.
Here's a couple of sandwiches. Now,
but
give me some clients. Go ahead, Rene.
but you know what, Jasmine, you said a key word, partner, right? Because as a company, when you're first starting off and you don't have no client, and let's say you find somebody else who have their company for a while, right? You build that relationship with them, and you let them know, hey, listen, if you come across a client that you may not want to take, hello, I'm over here,
Yeah.
And so at that point, I think that will really be helpful, because again, it's like business to business, always helping each other out. Finding clients that may not be a good fit for me, then hey, it might be a good fit for you. So now so now you're creating network of relationships with different people, different businesses that can sort of be that lead for you, that's going to find that potential client and give them your contact number, or even, or give it to you. Another thing too, I think from a billing standpoint, some of these EMR companies, they will list your company as a billing company on their website. So when they get new clients, they're going to say, hey, these are, billing companies that you can choose from. And, if that client potentially is in the same city as you are, guess what? They'll probably contact you. So that's another good way of potentially getting some clients from
I
the
love
billing
it.
standpoint.
Yep, I love that. All about partnerships, you guys. That's Renee's talking about that. I mean, it's all about partnerships and relationships that you won't even think about. Like, so Jeremy here is an IT director. Welcome, Jeremy. We're happy you stumbled across our channel. So very fun. So we'll have to have a topic around IT. That's a fun topic for me. So I do like IT talk. I love any sort of security, any nerdy stuff. We're just going to blame that on my father, who's an IT nerd actually as well. So you get me on all the nerdy stuff. We're good. We are cybersecurity and compliance is like a super duper hot topic. So we would totally love to have that conversation with you guys that are still struggling. The directory name. Oh, what directory? Did we say a directory? I don't know. I don't know if I'm not sure. I don't
remember.
I don't see your name because Facebook probably is going to ask you to like do an approval to show your name. But the person who just asked the question about the directory name, expand on that, because I don't remember talking about a directory specifically. So what I was going to say is that the partnership piece, even things like IT, right? So like relationships that might spawn from other relationships, right? Provider practices all have, I hope, we hope they all have IT. And so maybe there's some local, partnerships that you can have in your town, your community with other IT companies where they might be in and out of provider practices, hospital systems, whatever, that might be great client or opportunities for you. So yeah. Absolutely. So,
Absolutely.
there you go. So, optimal practice management. So that's Rachel Dawn's company. I like it. I've not, I've never been to New Mexico before. Not
Oh,
yeah, it's on our list. We're gonna do that side. So, what was Rene saying
yeah.
about a list? Oh, he was saying, and you can repeat it, but he was talking about the different
The
software companies,
EMR company.
EMR
Yeah,
companies.
EMRs. Yeah,
You
so
say
like for
EMR. I don't
example,
EMR. Like, do they use that term anymore? I guess it is still. There are still companies that are just EMR, I guess. But yes,
yeah. So
he's saying software companies. But anyway, continue, Renee.
it's all good. It's all good. Like I know one in particular, like Charm EHR. Like my company is listed on their website, and it's really easy. Honestly, you reach out to them and you tell them, "Hey, I'm a billing company. I would like to get listed," and they'll send you a form. You fill it out, and basically you'll put like all the different specialties that your company bill for, and you get listed. I know a lot of the other software or EMR companies do it as well, but I think they may want you to use their billing platform though, so that might be the only thing to it. But if you can get listed on it, you should be good to go. So
Yeah, make sure it's something that you want to use, because certainly they, excuse me, they will encourage who they're referring
hmm
to you to be.
yep,
They're hoping to close that business, right? So
yep,
you're probably going to have to use whatever software you've put your name on. So yes,
correct.
just be open to the system, research the system, make sure you're good with it. But the one that Renee just mentioned is Charm EHR. I don't know if you backstage want to throw that up for him, that link. Charm EHR or EMR EHR.
The EHR, correct.
EHR,
Yep,
Charm. Okay.
yep.
And I
hmm
can't think of others right now. There are a lot of others that are smaller EHR companies or software companies that are cloud or web based, right? That might be options for you if you're interested in the systems, and certainly open to using a software that your clients might be able to get onto. And we all, as billing companies, we all need some sort of solution on our own, independent,
hmm
because as we'll talk about in a second here, a lot of practices get started and they may not have a direction or have made a decision on a system. So,
Correct.
yeah. So let's talk about ideal clients for Renee. So, like, who is your ideal client and how did you figure out who that is?
Well, so my ideal clients are usually the ones who are thinking about starting a practice. I love that aspect of it because this is where I always ask them, tell me what you envision your practice to look like. Is it going to be all telehealth? Are you going to lease space and see patients in person? Because to go through that whole entire process from to asking them what is the name of your practice, or the name that you would like to call it, helping them register with the state, getting their tax ID, their group NPI, and then kind of walking through the steps of getting credentialed, getting those contracts in place, and then just helping them with the EMR system based on their budget. So for me, is the whole practice startup phase. I love that. For some reason, it's fun for me.
I blame
I,
it on your desire. When you started your story earlier, I'm going to connect it back to your conversation in surgery when you were talking about how much you really want to get into business, because now you're just like constantly creating businesses for people. And
yeah.
listen, you guys have to know, I love business. I have a few businesses. I love the world of business, but Rene,
Mhm.
he likes to do this for other people, like in that way. I am not that person, which is why
Uh,
we have a great partnership, right, Rene? Like,
yeah.
Dr. Joe Schmo calls me and he's just about to open his practice. It's
Right.
not my client, which is like what we were just talking about. Yes, that is the right link, I think. Charmhealth.com, Rene, is that right? That we're just getting a
Yep.
message from backstage. Okay.
Yep.
Yes, that's the right one. So, yeah, I absolutely love that that is your specialty, because we do get a lot of calls like that, and it's near and dear to my heart to support providers that are just getting started, because especially someone who's been working in corporate for a long time, or employed by another larger hospital system,
Yeah.
or group practice. It is a very tricky world, and I know the allure is there to do it, right?
Yeah.
It seems like, ooh, like I could be independent, but everybody, it's a business, and the road is hard and bumpy. And so it's important to have someone that can navigate it with you, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of move alongside the journey, and not kind of have to go through all those pitfalls and roadblocks, kind of like what we were just talking about earlier. Like, you need to
Yeah.
have those experts, other people that have gone before you, that can say, hey, this is what to expect. And,
Correct.
that's the right
Yeah.
thing, or no, this is not the, like, I was joke around you. I was laughing to myself about you when you talked about the name, because so many people start names that are terrible names. like that is not a good name for a practice. Like, what is wrong with you? But so having someone like just as simple as like, what is a great, branding for a medical practice
Yeah.
is actually important. I
Yep.
know it seems like a silly thing, but it is really, really important. So,
Very
yeah,
true.
there's a lot of opportunity in like working with new practices and helping them shape their
Mm-hmm.
businesses, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy those of you who are consulting or thinking about consulting. That's a huge opportunity, because there's people, there's students coming out of school. I say coming out of school, they're new graduates, people that are looking to jump right into kind of independent practice after residency and all that they want to go right in, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
jumping into the deep end, and they've never worked for anybody else before in
True.
that
True.
formal way. So it's a
And
lot.
another thing too, I think since telehealth is becoming more and more popular, and I've noticed especially during in 2020 when COVID really hit us a lot. I
Mhm.
mean, there's been a big surge of physician assistants and nurse practitioners that are starting up their own telehealth company, and the reason why is because I mean, you basically are spending fraction of the cost of what you probably would have spent to actually set up an actual brick and mortar type of practice,
Oh yeah.
right? And so now a lot of medical clinicians, they're looking at a telehealth practice as almost like their side hustle, right? So they
Mhm.
get to still keep their full-time job, but if they want to do telehealth in the evenings, they can do that and then grow it until they feel like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm ready to leave my 9 to 5 job. And another thing too that I usually tell these medical providers is that, again, have the end goal in mind. Yes, it's super early, but it doesn't hurt to have the end goal in mind, because if, for example, if I'm a physician and I'm starting a practice today, I understand, yes, I have to build it up, right? So definitely with marketing and looking through different avenues of you know making sure patients can find me, building up my my panel of patients, making sure my billing is on point and all that. And if you want to, you can sell you can sell your practice. I mean, especially with these large healthcare systems. I mean, they're always knocking on doors, right?
Mhm.
Especially if they see that you are a very busy provider, to them it's money in their eyes, right? Because like for example HCA, right, they will find a physician practice or physician group that have multiple providers, and if they're really busy, then they know that, man, especially with this particular specialty, man, they can feed those patients right into our hospital, because that's where the real money is at, right?
Right.
And so, you have that, or if you really have that true entrepreneur thing, then it's like you grow your practice until you can actually hire another provider to continue to grow that volume, and then eventually, you find
Mhm.
yourself in a situation where, like, what, I really don't have to go too hard, right? I can actually scale back because I have three, maybe four providers, whether they're PAs or nurse practitioners, they're, basically carrying the bulk of the load. And, at that point, you'll be out there golfing, practice still running, still making money for you. But it's a business. But there are levels to it, and for providers, I tell them you can't be afraid to work hard. You can't be afraid to open up your mouth and talk about your practice. Those are the things that I tell them. I mean, especially from the branding standpoint. I mean, you have to be able to get yourself out there. People need to see your practice, see you. I tell them, get on some podcasts, post some things on social media, whatever it takes. Because for me, I mean, I think with technology and telehealth, I mean, that's definitely going to be the wave in the future, especially with remote patient monitoring. Those things, they go hand in hand, and that's a great way to add more revenue into your telehealth practice. So it's to me, it's a no-brainer for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, you said some really great things. There's some amazing nuggets, and what you were just talking about as far as branding and really having the end in mind when you start. All of that applies to us starting our businesses, right? Like those of you who don't know this, we just got done with a rebrand. There's a lot of things that I've been tied into, but that's why we've kind of fallen off. One of the reasons why we've fallen off, and not to mention that it's also with summertime and travel and all these different things going on. But is why you haven't seen us for a couple of weeks now. But basically, we just got done with a rebrand. The rebrand was necessary because when I first started my business, those of you who have been here before and have heard my story off and on, and it's somewhere on one of these other conversations, and Rene and I actually have on our podcast have a whole episode devoted to talking about our story, which is kind of funny. I was a little baby. When I started my company. I was 20 years old, thought I was a stank, and so when I started, I had this really big idea for a really big name, company name. And so our company name was Integrated Practice Solutions. It's a very long name, if you didn't notice. And so it very quickly became painful, even just like writing checks and filling out forms and all that. But, once you have it, it's there and it's yours. And it's like you name your child and you're like, well, I guess I'll call them that. Like that's my baby's name. But the good thing is that you don't have to stay with that baby's name when you have a business, but the rebranding process is quite a beast. So certainly starting with our new company name is really fun and sweet. It's Inlera. It's short and sweet. Inlera.
That's nice. I like it. Yeah.
Short and sweet.
But you know what though? I mean, rebranding can be kind of fun too, right? Because you almost feel like you're kind of starting all over again, but you're really not. I mean, you're basically giving your company a facelift, and every so often, it needs that. Because honestly, because I remember I mean, okay, I don't go to club. I'm not a clubber, but I just remember. Back
when people used to go clubbing. No. Are you gonna pump that?
It's just I remember back in Miami, I just see these clubs in the same spot, and maybe a year or two later, it's a different name. And so that's when I caught on to, so they do that just to continue to, and then what they do, they basically change the inside as well. So they give it a new look, a fresh name, but
people think it's hot and new,
right? The same people own it, so it's, but
the allure.
It's business. Yeah,
that's true. It's something, it is nice to have something new. And I will tell you guys a funny story, because our very, very first name, and just so that you guys are learning the secret. Okay. No one else knows. I don't think I've told this on any other platform yet. So those of you who are here, you've got to keep my secret. Our very first company name was Integrated Billing Solutions. And so I had a client who thought it was quite funny to write the checks IBS. And he's the one who told me, you picked the funniest name, and I didn't think anything of it. So yes, irritable bowel syndrome, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. So that is why our company name was then changed to Integrated Practice Solutions because I did not want to be known as IBS for the
That's
foreseeable
funny.
future. So
That
you
is
guys you have
hilarious.
to keep my secret. All right. You're not allowed to say anything to anybody. No, I actually have relationships with companies that we've worked with forever. And I've been trying to change the name. Like literally there's like 2 companies that we've worked with forever that they still haven't changed, and they're big companies, right? So they haven't changed our name. So they send like the old billing information still comes with like the name from 100 years ago. Like,
Wow.
so yeah, feels like 100 years anyway. So all right, we've gone a long time already. Let's see. Anybody have any other questions? I'm going to ask the last couple of questions here because I do not want to keep poor Rene. His wife is going to be mad at me. It's dinner time soon. So
It's all good.
let me see. What do you recommend for folks in medical billing, like to actually, if they're interested in doing something, what is like kind of the main tips that you would give? You've given some really great tips, but main tips if they're interested in either starting a billing company or a consulting company or whatever, what is the things kind of nuggets like to help them get to actually taking that leap or moving into, what's the best tip that you can give them moving into this stage of their career?
Absolutely. Don't go at this alone. There's so many people out there that have been in your place before. I mean, from the standpoint of the conception of a thought of doing something and actually putting it into fruition, find those people, network with them, build that relationship, and really ask them, how did you get started? Because just asking that question and hearing what they say, you will take something, at least one valuable thing away from that's going to help you on your journey. And so, I mean, so pretty much, honestly, to answer that question, you answer that, Jasmine. I mean, building a community, and honestly, the medical billers network. This is where you want to be, right? This is where you ask those questions. So those of us who have already started our companies and we're continuously continuing growing, ask us those questions so that way we can basically give you those nuggets, those wisdom that you might need. So to me, I think that's probably the most valuable thing, because I remember when I was starting my company, I was in my guest bedroom. It was probably 11 midnight, and I'm over here trying to scratching my head, trying to figure things out. Like, man, okay, like what do I need? Like where do I go? But like I said, a mutual friend of Jasmine and I connected us, and I was like, thank you, thank you, God, because again, just conversations that I would have with Jasmine, I learned so much from that, and even with Tanya as well too. So it's just like, okay, so I'm learning, and so it helps to build that confidence. And so I think once you build those relationships and you start to learn, then the next step is your pricing, right? And I kind of mentioned that before. Whatever you are going to charge, uh, believe in it, be comfortable with it, and stand firm with it. Because again, if you don't, then you'll find yourself working a lot harder for less pay. And especially when you start to hear what other people are getting paid doing what you do, you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, I shot myself in the foot, So
Amen to that. Amen to that. And by the way, I did not pay him to say what he just said about the. I feel like you just totally plugged us, and I appreciate that. So thank you. No, the Medical Billers Network, you guys, that is exactly why I created this for us as billers, right? For not just us, our teams. Both of us have teams. Like, it's really important for people to feel supported, right? And for the sake of the community to just talk about stuff that you guys are facing day to day. But then in this world, as Renee's saying, of trying to get out and get out of your comfort zones, even if it's out of your comfort zone, just taking a job in a field that you just got out of school to do something in healthcare, and you haven't had any real life experience, that takes a level of courage, and you really do need people around you, kind of it really like loving on you and like encouraging you and just speaking into you and stuff. So it's really helpful. And I mean, I'm just blessed, like at this stage, like it's very interesting evolution, but at this stage in business, it's one of those things that I get a lot of joy from. is talking to people like Rene. And Rene and I we just been talking, we just had a birth, we just have other things that came up from it. Like, we should talk about this. We like to talk.
I
We should get on
know.
we should do a podcast. Like,
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
so we're like, other people need to hear this conversation. That's literally how
Yeah.
it all started. So, and that's why this started, why we're on this tonight with you guys, is because we're like, why are we like, we need to share this information. Why are we over here
Yeah.
like having this one-on-one when we could be opening this up and letting people, helping people? You guys, healthcare is, the industry is gigantic. And I know I've said this to you guys before, but like, don't feel, especially if you're looking to get a job in healthcare and you're getting, rejection is new, whatever, just keep doing it. Like, you just got to keep getting out there. And like we're saying, networking and getting connected, being out there. Don't be shy. People need to know you, whether it's you as the individual or your business. You have to get out there and they have to know you. So you're going to need to talk to people. So I encourage you guys, just keep being out there and showing up and letting people know that you're here and you know what you're doing, right? Even if you're new, look, like, you might have just gotten out of school, but if you got out, you passed your certifications, whatever it is, right? You're ready. You're feeling ready. Let people feel that confidence in the way that you show up to talk to them, to help them. And sometimes it does take a little bit, especially if you're looking to start a company, of like, let me show you. I'm not going to charge you for the first 3 weeks, whatever, 30 days, just to get your first client, right? Sometimes you have to do that to be able to just like confirm it, not just for them, but also for yourself. You're like, I did some amazing stuff. And Rene said this earlier, really important, just like the burning bridges in professional relationships, at a job, the same thing goes for a client. I don't care how bad the relationship is. It could be the worst client. There are ways to end relationships, right? And in a professional way, in an admirable way, where you know that you did your part, you tried your very best, and you're like, look, our marriage is not working. It's like a marriage, you guys. You're like, look, you guys, our marriage, I've tried, I've done all my part, but I'm gonna have to you're gonna have to sign these divorce papers. And there's a nice way to do it. So don't just, ghost on them and like not do their billing and all that. I mean, you guys don't believe the stuff that I've seen, not just from companies, but individuals that have worked for jobs that just like, they just walk out one day and never come back. It's like,
it's crazy. It's crazy. So I do see Ashley, she did ask about, finding a billing company to work from home with. So for me, I think with this whole coronavirus situation, a lot of companies are starting, in my opinion, I may be wrong, but I know, just knowing other people and companies that they work for, they're actually starting to work from home. And I think billing is one of those professions that honestly, you don't necessarily have to be in the office. You can actually do that at home. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing more and more companies that are doing it, especially if you're, applying for these billing positions. If I was applying for those type of positions, I would be asking, that probably be the first questions: do you guys allow work from home? And see if that's something that is a good fit for you. But yeah, so that would be my best advice, is to, find the billing companies if they have a position. Great. Even if they don't, maybe like, I know if I was looking for a biller, like, yes, work from home, because I work from home, but and like, I'll tell you a interesting thing too. It's kind of off subject, but this is another service that that I provide, is patient remote scheduling. And basically we answer calls for different physician offices. And I went through like 3 people, and believe it or not, they really didn't want to work the job. I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, you have, now granted, right, I was paying what, $15 an hour. And which is like the average, going rate within the North Texas, Dallas area. And I don't know if they thought that it was just going to be easy work. I'm like, yeah, you have to answer the phones.
You got to actually do the work.
Patients.
You got to do the work. Listen, people can be the hardest. I love people, but sometimes people can be the hardest part of business. Like, it is just.
Man.
So yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I
keep
know.
pushing, because Ashley, if you are determined, and when you go to say, like, present yourself, to the companies, right? And you really show your dedication, your passion, like, you guys would be amazed. There are a lot of people who can do that on their interview, their first few days, what have you, but being consistent is the where they struggle. So I would
Yeah.
absolutely, like, just be great.
Yeah.
Be great,
Yeah.
because we need great people. Like, we really need great people. And so I'm gonna say that again. Oh, this is a great question from Rachel Dawn. So I'll let Renee. I did not, when I started my company, I had an accident. Like, I was, whatever, 18 or so. I had, like, some money, and it wasn't like, when I say an accident, it wasn't like I had like $100,000. I probably had like $10,000 or something in the bank. I was like 20 years old, remember? So I did not, all the money that I got, I didn't use just for my business, because I was 20. I had other things I wanted to do with my money, right? So I just said, oh, I need to pay these fees or do that or whatever. And at the time, I didn't have any real credit established, because of my age and all that. And nothing useful that I would want to then jump into, like, some sort of business loan. So I did not use a loan. I had probably somewhere around $8,000-10,000 that I used just as, like, something to carry me for the amount of time. Those of you who've heard my story, I was a mother at that same time. I birthed a child and then birthed a company, like, literally, like, around the same time. So
Busy.
yes, so life was very busy.
Yeah.
I was pregnant and in school, thinking that I knew I wanted to do it and wasn't sure and all that. So there was a lot happening, as you can imagine. But I will say that it does not cost a lot to start a company.
Right.
But the best thing that I would encourage you is that, some people think they have to be like, I have to be 100% in my business. And Rene mentioned this earlier. Like, sometimes side hustle is the way to go until you build confidence, because you're going to need to be able to, like, hit the ground running. And so if you can't do that right away, like, meaning you've got bills, you've, people to feed, yourself included in that, people to feed, right? You're going to really need to be mindful of that, right? So don't just take the big leap and go on full time, and then hate the job, hate the thing, hate the whole journey, right? And maybe it's just an opportunity for you to do that little side hustle, start to find the clients, build the relationships that you need to help move you in that direction. And that will build your confidence, and you probably won't need to feel that stress of the financial parts, right? Where you're like feeling like you need to go out and get a ridiculous loan for a business that's just startup. Like, I'm going to be totally honest. Like, I don't recommend, like, unless you're talking about, like, a company that you're going to sell in a handful of years or something, because it's got that much potential, like a some sort of software company or something like that, one that has huge potential to sell. I wouldn't recommend starting a business with a loan. I don't know what Renee's position is.
No, listen. Listen. I don't. The word loan, I don't even like it. Because personally, I don't like the idea of having to pay money back. So, but yeah. So, I think it's always great when you can start a business based off of your skills and knowledge and experience, right? When you're starting a business, you might need, if you don't have a laptop, that might be a little small investment that you might need to do, right? Based on what you're trying to get done. And then from there, you might need a couple, softwares or platforms or whatever it might be. But those typically come in subscriptions. I know when I first started, I definitely got me a new laptop because the one I had was really old and slow. And I did get some subscriptions to other platforms or whatnot just to get me going. Because once I knew, okay, I'm going to do credentialing, then I got me a subscription to a credentialing platform. And then, of course, earlier this year, I ended up getting a medical billing platform as well, too. So doing that, yeah. So again, it doesn't require a loan, but you will have to put some money to the side so that way you can, invest into those platforms. But definitely not no loan. If you don't need it, don't use it. And let me tell you, sometimes it's worth holding off until you make enough to get what you want, so that way you're not having a headache, right? Because starting a business is a headache, right? Because you're already trying to figure out how I'm going to grow, what am I going to do, but then you don't want to have this loan in the back of your mind that you have to
Right.
pay. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Now you're stressed owing somebody else money, and it becomes, now instead of it being this labor of love, now you almost feel
Hmm.
like you're a slave to that dollar trying to get that person their money. So I
Yeah.
just I would urge you guys to consider other things. And as Rene said, I mean, if you really feel like you need to kind of unplug from your job and then move on, maybe it's just you stacking away some cash. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
quick investment in something that can turn around within a year or whatever, and then you can pull out and take your money to start the business, and at full time or whatever. I would urge you not to do it with a loan, for that reason, just because it's gonna take the joy out of it.
Yeah.
And
I
you
definitely agree.
always, it almost feels, it's weird, but it, like, people will feel it, like the desperation and things like that. Like, if you're just going into it with this labor of
Yeah.
love, it's a different experience, even for the sales conversations that you have. So, and it goes back to what Rene was mentioned earlier, where you don't feel like you got to take every Tom, Dick, and Harry, because they're just
Hmm.
like, I need the money. And here you are, like, taking clients that really are not your ideal client and people that you
Right.
would want to serve. So, yeah, I hope we beat that dead horse, I think.
Yeah.
We're very
Man.
passionate about it. And Renee
Oh
and I both,
yeah.
we resonate on we both subscribe to the, and I say all because Tanya too, to the Dave Ramseys of the world. So
Oh
if you
yeah.
don't know who Dave is, he's on YouTube. Look him up, Dave Ramsey. You should, and actually I guarantee you, because he does a bunch of like episodes and things like that. I guarantee you he's talked about starting a business and getting a loan and
Mm.
all that. He's answered every question.
Listen, I can go on forever about that. Lord knows how passionate I am about that topic because my wife and I, we've been on that journey, and actually we have our last debt to pay off and we're almost there. So I'm
Nice.
telling you, I'm telling you, getting in debt. Listen, I go to sleep different now. I go to sleep in peace. I wake up, it's like,
Mm.
man, I don't feel like I'm working to try, for that dollar to have to go pay that
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
It's now it's like, I'm working to make a living because I want to build wealth now. I'm looking
Yeah.
at the next thing. How can I position my family? We
Mm.
want to go buy a real estate and or whatnot. But anyways, I digress.
I love it. We can continue this conversation. You're gonna have to come back on for
Oh, for
sure.
sure.
And you guys, as I told you already, Renee is in the Facebook group. So if you're not in there, join the Facebook group. And those of you who are in there, ask your questions. We want to answer them. And life has been a little hectic over the summer. We're gonna say we're getting back on that wagon. So if you have
Yes.
noticed that
Yes.
we've been light in our clubhouse appearances too. Those of you who
Yes.
are in our clubhouse community as well. We're gonna get back together with that, and our podcast. We are on all podcast outlets, pretty much. Like, I don't know, a ridiculous number of them.
Yes. I think
So
about 13, 14 of them now. Yeah.
yeah, so that's Healthcare Disrupted is the
Yeah.
podcast. If you want to listen to some of our interviews and stories and things like that, we've got some fun guests. And if you are listening to this and you think you might be an interesting guest, it is a podcast dedicated to people that are disrupting healthcare. So innovative
Mhm.
ideas, it can be business ideas, it can be software solutions, what have you. We would do a preliminary interview with you and talk through what your concept is and do a little vetting just to understand it a little better. And then we'll bring you on. So yeah. You guys have a beautiful holiday weekend. Next week, we will have a show. I will let you know officially the guest. There is someone that I'm just waiting for confirmation of whether or not it works. But Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time is the time. We are on all platforms now live. So if you're on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook's, there's multiple channels and things on Facebook. So if you're on one of those and you prefer to watch it on one of those platforms, then just subscribe or like us or whatever needs to happen to get you plugged into that notification. Cool. So thank you guys so much for your time and energy. And I'm just going to say that, Rene, you are thebomb.com, as my beautiful coach calls it. So join us next week. We're here 7:30 p.m. Rene, thank you for your graciousness and your presence.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate you for having me on.
Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of the day, everybody.
All right. Take care.